I'm here with Robert, also known as Braveheart. I'm joking. And so there was a protest today in Hyde Park around the vaccination policy and the mask wearing policy that we're being introduced into. I mean, there's signs here. What does someone say to me?
It says, you'll never take our freedom.
So what I'd love to know is just a little bit more understanding around that.
On the back.
There we go.
Wake up, pandemic hoax. Poison vaccine.
So can you give me a little bit more? Can you give me just a little bit more information about what today's event?
Well, I think the big issue today was vaccines and the vaccine passport that will be introduced, and they're not mandatory. Vaccines are not going to be mandatory, but the restrictions are, if you don't vaccinate, will prevent normal life.
So
you won't be able to buy.
You
won't be able to travel. You won't be able to buy even. Eventually, you won't be able to buy petrol, carrot at the shop, anything. You won't be able to drive a license, a car license.
So
There'll be
can I ask you a question
everywhere.
on that? How have you got to those conclusions in terms of? So they have mooted a passport restriction on travel.
Travel, yeah.
But how?
Travel.
But how have you reached the conclusions on?
I need to think about that for a second.
There you go. Look, there's more if you want.
I can see it happening, that's all. How do I come to the conclusion? You've got me on the spot here.
I know. It's okay. Take your time. Do you want me to pause it?
Yeah.
So I'm reframing the question. So international travel is one thing that is obviously going to be restricted if people don't take on vaccination. However, does it impact civil society? Does it impact people's ability to do their day-to-day shopping or go to the petrol station or all that kind of thing? Tell me a bit more.
Well, apart from the hints that we've been getting from Gladys about non-entry allowed to government premises, things like that, and the CEO of Qantas with the flight things. Apart from that, what really first alerted me was in March last year, Scott Morrison, upon announcing the COVID pandemic,
That might have been here.
immediately legislated for anybody any entry into aged care homes, they needed to have a flu vaccination. Now, there's no correlation and no science.
Totally agree.
No science behind, no correlation between flu shots and this supposed coronavirus. So what made him, out of the blue, just pick that left field and mandate it? What made him do that? That instantly.
So is there an overarching?
That instantly showed me that there's something wrong, and this is what's going to come.
So when you say there's something wrong, I mean, I totally.
People lost jobs.
I totally agree. I mean, the flu and COVID, it's like apples and oranges. You know, people kept saying, "Oh, people die of the flu all the time." It's like, well, people are still dying of the flu,
That's right.
but now they're also dying of COVID. You know, they're additive rather than replacements.
Well, I think the replacements actually.
Well,
I think it's rebadging.
You reckon?
Yeah. And another thing on that flu vaccination mandate for aged care home entry, there's no science that proves that that's a good measure, a good thing to do. And yet you'd think that he would have mandated everybody in aged care to be flu vaccinated.
But the flu vaccination is irrelevant, isn't it? Surely, in this.
But
case.
the point is, why didn't he do that? Because you'd think, that'd make all the aged care residents safer. But the point is, there's science, peer-reviewed studies that show that the flu vaccine is detrimental to the human body, and if he mandated it for aged care residents and they started dying, the government would be liable in court.
But are you correlating the COVID vaccine with the flu vaccine in terms of its impact?
No, I'm just saying why did he bring in this flu vaccine mandate for the aged care?
Ignore he'd done that.
Yeah.
And so
Why was that brought in?
if we look more worldwide,
and that's what's leading me to believe that this COVID vaccine passport is going to come in and start restricting and impeding everywhere on every basic.
So your argument is it against the vaccine, or is it against the data behind the vaccine?
My argument is that, first of all, it should be not mandatory, not coerced, and second, that the science is out there that all vaccines are actually detrimental to the human body.
Well, not all. So you've been vaccinated against polio. You've been vaccinated against meningitis.
I think.
Rubella, even though we're both male.
But there's no science that says.
Well, there is science. There is science.
But the question was, what's leading me to believe that passports?
So where is your fear? What? Please. Yeah. What I'm trying to understand is, where is the fear here? Because we're in a privileged part where we're able to move around. We're not wearing masks. The two of us like hi. We can socially distance. Whereas, I've got family in the UK who are and nurses in nurses in the UK who are seeing people die daily. And this isn't an emotional response, it's an objective response. I've got friends in the US who can't move out of their condos in Seattle, etc. We're in a really fortunate position here, so I don't understand what the anger is. Can you tell me why today happened? What's the why?
Well, it's just a lot of things combined. And all these vaccines have been pre-arranged and rammed through.
Is it the messaging that's the wrong thing, or rather than the vaccine?
No, it's the concept of having a vaccine.
But vaccines are commonplace.
And why was all this rammed through and pre-arranged months ahead for companies that still the testing wasn't finished, and yet they've all invested, and it's getting rammed through. There's nothing's going to change it, and now it's coming out next week in Australia.
But it's not obviously going to be compulsory in Australia initially.
It's not compulsory anywhere.
Well, no,
and they never will make it compulsory because they can't. It's against human rights.
Well, actually, tell me about the human rights.
Your life.
Tell me about the human rights issue.
Human rights.
Specifically in terms of this, it's we have something that's globally
Well, you can't be coerced
damaging.
into medical experimentation. Really?
There's an argument
That's
there.
it.
So, in a nutshell, tell me what today was about.
Today was about vaccines, and even the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines, they're not vaccines, they're genetic therapy. Forgetting that, all these vaccines are getting rammed through, and there's vaccine passports actually happening around the world, some places. So it's obvious it's going to come here.
Yeah, obviously.
That's one thing.
But
everybody's worried about that.
Can I interrupt on that part? So if they don't come here, what are the consequences?
The passports. Consequences of the vaccine.
If we don't
being
have
available.
not the vaccine being available, but if we don't have a way of saying that it's safe to travel, that this person is safe to travel to X or Y, what's the alternative?
For the person wanting to travel.
Yeah, or just just people generally. So, for example, my mother lives in Cyprus. She would need to have some kind of passport that says it's okay for I'm clear. I would need some kind of passport that says I'm clear, and I can go to see my mother. But in the current situation, I haven't been able to see her in over a year. So, in your view, what's the alternative?
the alternative to
to having a system that says you're safe and you're, we know that. So vaccination is a proven way of, polio, for example, smallpox, meningitis. All this.
Science is not settled there. And I haven't seen any science that proves it.
It's peer reviewed.
It's all not.
We don't have polio. We've literally
But the figures
knocked
were
out
that
polio from the world.
was decreasing, almost gone before the vaccines even came in.
But
in the
but
60s,
even
50s.
what was it? Smallpox came back recently because people weren't vaccinated.
Well, I don't think the science shows that. Sorry,
That's okay. That's
show
why
that.
I'm talking to you.
it doesn't show that. Doesn't show
Where do you get your science from?
I see things written on sites, lectures, doctors' lectures.
Which kind of sites? Just for my educational purposes.
Children's self-defense. John Bergman, chiropractor, on YouTube. Dr. Tent on YouTube.
So one final question, and well, I've got two final questions. The last one's a joke.
Journalists like nomorefakenews.com.
And so where does nomorefakenews.com get its sources from?
He often quotes virology books.
So it's a one person thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
He quotes like
Sorry.
he shows Fauci's discrepancies
Yeah.
of what he says here and what he's previously said, or what he's previously stated in virology peer-reviewed studies, magazines.
So I've got one final question for you. Two final questions
he's
for you, and I'll
dealt
let
with
you move on.
reporters all his whole life, like Cheryl Atkinson.
And I'm not one of those kind of reporters, because
No, I mean, he's
I'm
dealt
in the
with them,
park
and
with
he's
the dog.
known the cover-ups and the stories, previous viruses.
Two final questions for you.
Yeah.
First one, more holistic. What do you think the future looks like as far as COVID?
Unless we have a massive awakening, I think we're in trouble.
And final question for you.
Trouble.
Final question. Rate your communication skills on a 1 to 10 and make sure that the scale is accurate.
Communication skills, I would say a 5.
And what articulate that scale?
Articulate? What do you mean?
As in, how have you measured that scale?
How I measure that scale? I see the golden-tongued people like Obama and Scott Morrison, and I know I'm not one of them. I'm more engineer type.
What do you do?
Mechanical engineering.
I'm a software engineer.
So I'm science-based, mathematical, can't bullshit, not the golden tongue variety.
So if you're science-based,
So that's how I rate myself. Nervousness, self-confidence.
And I'm going to end it. Robert, you've been
Thank
an
you.
absolute
Thank you for this.
star for this.